Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I had several people reach out that were unavailable to join, so I'm gonna record it. Um, so I think I've got that all set up. Good morning, everyone. I'll wait just another minute to see if anybody joins. I did have a few people reach out this morning that are unable to make it, so we're going to record it. So if you would like me to send it out your way, the recording out your way for volunteers, anyone else in your programs that might be interested, please just respond to my original email and I will get you that as soon as the visit is over. So we'll get started here in just a second. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jessie Lowry. I am the Director of Community Engagement at Hutton Settlement. I'll just really quick introduce the others from our team on the call, and then we'll get going. Hopefully this won't take a whole lot of your time, but we so appreciate you joining in and being willing to listen a little bit about what the Hutton Settlement does. And I think we might have some unique opportunities for you as you look at different opportunities for kids in need of placements that maybe some other areas are not serving yet. So we've got several different people from our team on this call. We've got Chrissy Williams, who is our campus director. We have Chud Wendell, our executive director. And then we have Marley Griffith, who is on our Hutton Board of Trustees. And I'll let Marley share more in just a second, but Marley is from your guys' world. She was a CASA volunteer for many years and has lived both sides. So I thought she might be able to join and add a little bit of a valuable perspective as you navigate both systems. So we will get going. As far as the call today, we hope to just kind of share a little bit about Hutton, the services that we provide, some current opportunities for placements, and then we would love to just open it up for any questions you might have. And there's no silly question. In our 40 minutes, we will not finish and answer every question. I would encourage you please to reach out. Myself and some others on our team are excited and ready to, we've got a couple of visits scheduled up north already. I talked to somebody this morning in Grant County that will be visiting. So if you would like us to come up and share more to whether it's your program teams, state offices, whoever you'd like to connect us with, we would be more than happy and excited to do that. So we will get going. I'm gonna throw it over to Marley. So I mentioned Marley is on our board of trustees, and Marley is one of our newest trustees, but she comes to us with a lot of experience in the children's welfare system. So Marley?
Well, to say was my supervisor in my last few cases at CASA. So I'm glad to see you on the call, Andy. Anyway, I did about 12 years of CASA work. I had many cases. Still fascinating the things that I saw and that worked and that didn't work. But I thought, thinking back over it, I was thinking, now that I'm so invested in Hutton settlement, I didn't even know it existed, and it's here in Spokane. But now that I've opened up that door, I kind of looked back over some of my cases and how, had I known about Hutton at that time, how it would have made such a difference to these kids. So I'm going to just talk briefly about two cases that I remember. The first one was two little boys, 6 and 9 years old, and they were removed from their home for the usual stuff, domestic violence and drug abuse. A grandmother was found, but she felt she could only take one of the boys. So she took the 9-year-old. The 6-year-old went into a regular foster home. Long story short, the relative placement with the grandmother failed because the behaviors of the 9-year-old, missing his brother, which he verbalized and acted out on very descriptively, he just wasn't doing well without his brother. So eventually he was moved out of the grandmother's home and into a regular foster home. 16 months later, we were finally able to find a foster home that would take both boys. I think back and I cringe over that 16 months. That would have been a very different story had those boys come to Hutton. And on that makes me want to tell you again that preserving sibling groups is one of the very top priorities at Hutton. We currently have 3 families with sibling groups that are 8 children in total. No one can argue that the kids are people. And in these little boys' case, it was kind of their last connection. The other case was a foster adopt that was derailed. They were ready to go. It was derailed by a serious illness in the adoptive father, cancer actually. And he suddenly the foster adopt that was going great fell through. 3 placements followed for this child before permanency was found, and it ultimately not found with the father, the adoptive father, because he didn't survive. Again, if I had known about Hutton at that time, I think what a difference it might have made for that child. So so hopefully we want to get that word out. You guys know, you guys are doing cases every day. You know the needs and the variety of needs. We also are kind of on the specter of the House Bill 1227, which is going to make big difference in how we as CASAs do things and how we at Hutton do things. But my hope is that you'll spread the word. That's really what this call is all about today. And if you have, as you can tell, I like to talk. So if you have a meeting you'd like me to come and do, come and do presentations for, it doesn't have to be in Spokane. Just reach out and I'm sure you'll be happy with the response. Really working hard to get this word out for this incredible place that now Jesse and our team is going to describe to you. So thanks for your time, you guys. We're right here. Call us. Thank you.
Thanks, Marley. So just to start out, a little bit of a brief overview. So for those of you that may not be aware of what Hutton Settlement does or is, we are a residential children's home, very different than you would probably imagine. We do serve kids ages 6 to 18 in need of a long-term placement. So we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like, but our kids that come to us, we do ask that they stay a minimum of 9 months or a full school year, just so they have the opportunity and the chance to really adapt. We're not necessarily a crisis placement that would be a transitional like 30, 60, 90 days. We do ask that if there is potential for that long-term stay. We were founded in 1919, and to really briefly share a little bit about the history. Our organization was founded by a gentleman named Levi Hutton, who was an orphan himself, and he struck it rich. It was kind of a rags to riches story, but was working in the Wallace, Kellogg area, and was with the Northern Pacific Railroad Company, got married, invested his life savings in the Hercules silver mine, and after many years of hard work and sweat equity in this mine, they struck it rich. And so Levi Hutton, along with his wife at the time, May Hutton, she passed away prior to Hutton being founded, ended up being able to act on his dream of operating, funding a children's home for kids in situations just like himself. So 104 years later, we are still here. Levi was very clear that he wanted the organization to not necessarily be an institution like he saw many of these places across the country, but a home, what he described as a neighborhood of care. So if you've ever been out or seen pictures of the Hutton settlement, it truly looks like a neighborhood. We've large homes, brick homes that we call cottages. And they're essentially, individual foster homes within the campus. So we really, again, there are things like, keeping families together, continued family engagement that we'll share about. But the Hutton settlement was born to this idea that we would provide safe and healthy homes for children in need, hope, opportunity, and life for kids most in need in our communities and beyond. So I would love to introduce Chud Wendell. So he's our executive director, to share a little bit more about kind of the funding piece and how that works, because it's certainly unique to our organization.
Thanks, Jesse. Thanks, Marley, for opening it up. I'm Chud Wendell, executive director of the Hutton Settlement. And first, want to share just the thoughts that are with are those that have been impacted by the fires. And if any of you have had cases or children that you're working with that have been impacted, God bless you and the work you do. But Thank you for being here. Thanks for being on, taking the time this morning. Fortunately, we have rain, and it's doing wonders to our air. And thank you for what you do. It's huge. And I don't have a background in children's welfare, but as I'm learning from Marley and others that work as CASAs and make a difference in these kids' lives, there's a place for you. And I appreciate it on behalf of the Hutton team. So thank you. So one of the reasons why Marley alluded to that we're one of Spokane's like best kept secrets. That's a good and a bad thing. My theory on why is that it's our funding model. Our funding model that we were blessed with by our founder. He endowed the settlement, created this vision of providing hope, opportunity, and life to provide that we could provide to children that are underprivileged, that have been abused, abandoned, neglected. He had an unlucky hand dealt to him, and he's like, I don't want that to happen. So what he did with this funding model, he wanted to create a sustainable funding model that outlasted that vision. Usually we're creating outlasted the mission. Usually we're creating great missions and trying to find ways to fund it. In this case, we have the funding model set, which has prevented us from going out to the community and tooting our horn and telling who we are. So that is a good and a bad thing. We have great funding, but the community isn't real aware of us. And so that's why we're so appreciative you're here today. So for 104 years, he endowed us with a commercial real estate portfolio where the rental income, these are all properties primarily in the Spokane area, where the rent from these properties actually funds our campus operating budget to the tune of about 80 to 90%. With that's really allowed us to stay true to his mission from day one, as we've been able to fund it and operate by it. And we haven't relied on government funding one day, one time. So we are set, and we've been really true to our mission from day one, not chasing maybe different programs that are out there or different ways to be able to deliver our care according to maybe what the government wants or a program wants. So it's been huge. It's allowed us and our staff, Chrissy and her team, to be able to do what they do best, and that's love and care for our children. Oh, Jesse, turn it back to you.
Thanks, Chad. So with that, we're able to, again, provide that long-term on-site wraparound services that provide that community of care. Our kids, and Chrissy will share a little bit about it in a second, but our kids are cared for by house parents, and those house parents care for the kids through what we call a circle of security attachment-based parenting method. And that we'll go into a little bit more, but we really believe that is kind of at the core of what helps these kids not only, do things like work through trauma and address some core insecurities that these kiddos have, but also how do they find things like purpose, joy, and that is all done through some of our other programs here that are also on site. We do see that we have several a couple individuals joining us from DCYF, and we'd like to say thanks so much. We could not do what we do without your guys' support as well. And I think this is a really important point to make, that we take kids that are both state placed and privately placed, and those situations literally look different for every single child out here. And we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like here in just a second. So Chrissy, I will turn it over to you to talk a little bit more in depth what the care looks like out here.
Okay. Hi guys, I'm Chrissy. I'm our campus director out here. So when you hear the designation group home, I know you get a vision in your mind. We do not look like a typical group home. We have 4 houses here. We call them cottages, but each of them has capacity for 8 to 9 kids. All of our kids have their own bedrooms, their own space. It looks like a typical home. So we don't do cafeteria style meals. Every cottage has their own individual culture where they help plan their meals. Kids have chores. There's a homework room. There's game rooms. It's really does not look like a typical group home. So we have 2 boys' houses, 2 girls' houses, capacity for a few more kids. We do have openings right now. So the way we're set up really centers around our house parents. We have 4 sets of primary house parents. They work about an 8-day rotation. They live there 24 hours a day. When they have their 3 to 4 days off, we have the same set of relief house parents that come in. So kids do have a stable set of adults that they're working with constantly. It creates healthy attachments, trust, stability for these kids who have not had stability in their life. So the cool thing about Hutton is we sit on 320 acres, so we use all of that land. We incorporate programs that kids can take part in. There's farming, gardening, Christmas tree, coffee roasting programs. We have sheep and chicken and honeybees on campus. And kids can work in those programs, and they're learning life skills, responsibility, as well as we know that kids do better as adults if they can find purpose somewhere, belonging somewhere. So our goal is exposure to all of these different things. About 70% of our kids do work on campus. We pay them. They apply for that job. They love it. And then the other 30% are typically our high school age kids where they're wanting to get a job in the community or play club sports or play high school sports. So whatever our kids want to do, we are going to facilitate and help them do that. So the way we do that is we have a team in our administration building. It's built up of, we call it the youth development team, but we have a clinical social worker, a certified educator, a family support specialist, and a case aide that will help house parents to get their kids to all of those activities and to help support them in their needs. Which is really, really key to our kids being successful. So on average, just so you guys know, our kids stay here on average about 4 years, some less, some far more. We've got kids that have lived here for 12 years. One of the coolest things about Hutton, I think, is that upon graduation, they transfer over to our alumni caseload. We follow our kids until they're age 24. And what that means is we have alumni housing. So they're kind of dorm style apartments on campus for those kids that are trying to figure out what they want to do. Maybe they're working, maybe they're going to school online. They do have the option to live in those campus apartments because we know kids are not magically adults once they turn 18. So on that caseload, they're receiving sometimes daily, weekly, monthly check-ins from our social worker. If there was a space where a kiddo got evicted from an apartment, they would have a space to fall back on so that they're not looking or wondering if they're going to be homeless. So we have supports in place until these kids are 24. There's also a funding mechanism to help them pay for college, sometimes fully pay for college if that's the route they want to go, or if they wanted to go to a trade school or a certification program, we will help them with that. I always forget a couple things, but one of the reasons I think our program works so well is we are not a BRS home. We do receive a lot of kids as intakes that are in a BRS placement, and it is not an appropriate placement for them. All of our kids come here with behaviors, typically survival behaviors. We see behaviors every day, but we are not a therapeutic behavioral support home. We are not tracking behaviors on a daily basis. The reason I think we see behaviors decline so quickly is that kids are allowed to have those behaviors and make those mistakes, but we have this attachment-based, relationship-based program where they're in a safe place to make those mistakes. And over time, kids learn that there's trusted adults that they can fall back on and the behaviors kind of go away. We do contract with a therapist, usually 2, but our economy is giving us a little bit of a headache in finding new therapists. But our kids have access to see a therapist on campus each week, which is really nice. It's almost like seeing a therapist in the comfort of your own home so that there's less transition for them as they work through their trauma. All of our kids attend West Valley Public Schools. The school bus comes right up our lane and picks them up and drops them off every day. So we really have created as normal of a life for these kids that live here as we possibly can. And yeah, if any of you would be interested in coming out for a tour, we would love for you to see it in person, because I feel like you really have to see it in person to get a good idea of what we do. Jesse, did I miss anything?
No, that sounds great. Chad, do you want to touch on kind of some current opportunities with the remodel?
Yeah. So one of the things that Levi did so well, our founder did so well, is set us up to have that sustainable funding model. One of the things that that we try to do our best at, but didn't do a great job, is investing back into our building. So Levi wanted to build these buildings to last 250 years. Obviously, you have to put a little love into them along the way. We were blessed with celebrating our centennial in 2019. And we took that opportunity because we knew we'd be out there in front of the public and in different events and being able to share our word. And so we launched into a centennial campaign to be able to, a centennial capital campaign, to be able to reinvest back into the cottages and into our administration building. And so we're like 95% done with our construction. We are able to raise about $8 million, update each cottage. We did not have air conditioning, for example, in our cottages before 2019. And as we know, with this unfortunate heat and air quality that we've experienced over the last several years, air conditioning is critical for our kiddos. And we're able to offer that now. In addition, our cottages had several rooms where there were more like sleeping porches where several children would reside in each room. So there'd be multi kids in each room. And with today's child that's coming to us, they're typically required to have a single occupancy room. So that meant some of these kids were in rooms that were, sleeping porch size. So part of the updates, we right-sized the cottages, which actually added capacity. So we're able to serve for more kids. But from electrical, plumbing, and so forth, we were able to update everything and bring it into a 21st century type quality of living style that has made a huge difference. So that's been a huge piece of it. In addition, we have moved our administration department. We've been located downtown for the 104 years, and we actually just moved out to campus this year and are finishing our addition out here that will be where our administration department will be and our boardroom. So it's been exciting around here since COVID. We've had a lot of changes, but all for the good.
Thanks, Chad. So, all that to be said, so we have capacity for placements right now, which is not a super common thread in Hutton's history. A lot of the times we'll hear folks say, well, we don't reach out because they never have room. And that's not the case right now. So if you have a child that you are interested in just inquiring about, it's really important to remember again that none of our placements are the same. And so if you have somebody you just want to have a conversation with us about and say, hey, do you think that this might be a good fit before I, float it past the caseworker or the family, please reach out and have that conversation with us. Chrissy, do you want to dive into kind of what that process might look like if they move forward?
Yeah, so we receive intakes a variety of ways through CASA, school counselors, families will just call us. A lot of times it's grandparents raising kids that are just struggling. So our intakes all have and all of our kids here, very different stories and a variety of ways they get here. We get a lot of cold calls. They email us through the website. You can do either way. So what happens is we'll get a little bit of preliminary information on the kids, see what type of support they need, what their history is, and then that preliminary intake gets passed to our intake specialist where he'll invite whoever is interested in seeing our campus, family members, social workers, CASAs, out to campus for a tour where you can go a little more in depth and ask those questions, give a tour of the cottages. I do find that kids, it really settles their mind to be able to see the campus in person. It's a really important piece of that intake process. They can see that we're not a secure campus. We're not this scary fenced in building where they could never leave. It's very helpful to do that. And then there'll be a deep dive, kind of a medical social history on those kids that we can give a full report to potential house parents on what they can expect, what traumas those kids have been through, what emotions or kind of behaviors they can look forward to supporting. And then our intake process is a little slower. We don't typically get a phone call and say, can I bring them out today? But what we do is try to work as efficiently as we can, get that history, do a tour, schedule. In the summer, we can do weekdays, but in the school year, we'll schedule a weekend visit, usually Friday through Sunday with primary house parents, and typically the following weekend so they can meet relief house parents and spend a weekend with them as well. And then we'll start like that 30-day stay. Typically, when a kiddo comes in for a 30-day stay, it's a permanent stay. We've done enough deep dive into their information to know what cottage they would fit best in, what population group they'd fit best with, and house parents as well. And then we'll do a 30, 60, and 90-day meeting with that kiddo's team to just kind of update on how they're doing and go from there. But we do a really great job at our intake process to make sure that they'll be a good fit for Hutton. And what a good fit for us means is that to an extent, kids can self-manage their behaviors. They're not requiring one-on-one care. Typical behaviors we see are lying, stealing, bedwetting, food hoarding, those typical survivor behaviors, and they dissipate over time, and we can support those behaviors. A consistent set of behaviors where they're violent toward themselves or others, they likely need a higher level of care. But we are also happy to talk through any of those intakes with CASAs or social workers, because we also know that none of our kids look good on paper. It's worth talking to school counselors and therapists and different foster providers for those kids to kind of get a big picture view of kids.
The other piece that we haven't necessarily touched on, but very important, is the family placement or the family engagement side of it. And one of the things that we really believe in here is if it's safe and appropriate, and I'll say that because we totally understand that's not always the case, but if it's safe and appropriate, we love to find ways to keep family engaged with the kids to keep that relationship intact. So sometimes that means the kids, especially if they're a private placement, that the kids can, go home to their families once a month on our going in weekends, or maybe they spend holidays with them. Maybe that family comes out to Hutton for visits. Maybe it's phone calls. Whatever that looks like, we can help facilitate that. On the other end, we have kids that have no contact with families, that are here all the time, whether it's every weekend, holidays, and we certainly can provide for that as well. So if there is a possibility for that, I know we've connected with some of the the area leadership in DCYF and have had conversations with like the FAR program and how we can kind of work with your guys' team on creating a situation where we're also providing some support to the general family, whether that's through circle of security parenting training, just some coaching and maybe mentoring opportunities that while the child is here, maybe it be for a year or two, they can get themselves in a place where they can care better for the child in home. A child doesn't have to be removed from the home via DCYF. or, CPS for them to be placed at Hutton. Again, we do take private placements. So if you happen in, a different place or role that you may hold, if you say, hey, there's a family, a child that I think would really benefit from some structure and stability, maybe temporarily or permanently, Hutton is still an option for them. And because what Chud shared a little bit before with the funding piece, if a child is placed here via the state, we don't take that state money for the placements. But if they're a private placement, there's not necessarily, while we do ask families if they can have the capacity to contribute very minimally, they do, but many times our families aren't paying into anything for their care because we have been blessed with that funding model that does not require it. So that said, again, every situation is different and it doesn't hurt to ask. We have, in the private world, we've got many situations of failed adoptions, both out of the foster care system and international adoptions. We have kinship situations where a great-great-grandparent is trying to care for their relative, but they just don't have the capacity to do so. We have single parents that are just really struggling keeping up with behaviors because of the child's trauma background. So again, not any situation is the same, but we found a model that we believe to really work in all those. I will open it up to questions, but before that, if I could just make a pitch again, we would love to do any sort of outreach with your teams, whether it's a presentation to your volunteers or program staff, boards, etc. We are 100% willing and able, and again, it doesn't have to be in Spokane. We're willing and excited to travel. If you've got any placement inquiries, we would love to entertain those. Connection to services, if you are tied into other groups, whether it be state or private organizations, we would love the introductions. And if there's anything we can do to support you all, I know, the CASA GAL world, you guys often don't get the credit deserved as you're advocating for those kids. And thank you for all of that. And for the state caseworkers also, a very tireless job, I know. So here is our contact information, but before we end, I will send the recording out again to those that wish. Just please send me an email. But does anybody have any specific questions about Hutton or how we might be able to help?
I actually have a quick question about the house parents. Are they typically spouses that come in, or are they, what does that look like?
Do you want me to take that one?
Yeah, please, Chrissy.
Yeah. So, okay. In our 4 houses, 3 of our primary house parents are married couples. One of them is a 20-year house parent her partner is a kiddo that was raised here at Hutton. So that's kind of a cool partnership as well. Our 2 sets of relief house parents are friends that were partnered together. It is not a requirement that they're a married couple. House parents come to us from many different backgrounds.
Great, thank you. And do you guys train them? Are they trained or?
Yeah, so being a licensed group care facility, we're required by that WAC to provide that 24 hours of training within the year on an ongoing basis. When house parents first come in, they go through that in-depth circle of security house parent training and the typical group care, so the CPR, first aid, the de-escalation, mandated reporter, but we have monthly ongoing training throughout the year.
Thank you.
Donna just asked, what's the maximum number of kids that can reside on campus? Donna, so that really just depends on kind of the current caseload at the time. As far as beds go, we have high 30s is what the bedroom number for capacity is. But as you guys may very well know, like after COVID, the level of care and needs that our kids were exhibiting were just something that we hadn't experienced. So our numbers went definitely lower, but 36, 38 is what our kind of official capacity as far as everybody having their own bedrooms on campus. Any other questions? Okay, well, oh, I see Ellen.
Hi, this isn't a question, but just a comment. I currently am a CASA for a boy who has been placed at Hutton, at least 2 years. And this kiddo came in when he was about 8. He had experienced everything that you could check the box on: starvation, sexual abuse, emotional abuse. It was a gamut. And they did a very nice job of getting to know him, because it was not an easy thing to say yes. But he has been there 2 years and he is thriving. And I'm so happy that he's there. I just saw him this last weekend. He's out in the pool. They have an in-ground pool there that the kids, I think they call it enrichment time, but just in the summer, they just get to play and play and play. He's a very active child, and they have provided incredible opportunities that kids wouldn't normally have. Like he's telling me about this week, the family vacation, the cottage vacation was a trip to the Oregon coast, the Washington coast, crabbing, swimming, everything you can imagine. So, but I will say I have one concern, and that's just the staff there. I mean, the counselors there are wonderful, but he came into Hutton with an established relationship with a counselor. And the only thing that troubles me is transportation wasn't provided for that. And that is kind of a tough thing. You know, volunteers, it's difficult to have volunteers transport kiddos. But the only thing I didn't like initially was the lack of him. The social worker did it, but that was a rough spot. He's thriving, and I'm so thankful for Hutton, not Sutton. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellen. All right.
And
yeah.
I want to expand on that just a little bit. The transportation piece, just so you guys know, a lot of our kids do come in with an intact therapist that might conflict with other transportation needs of kids. And so social workers will sometimes transport, but I would say overall, we do all that transportation for any medical therapy, dental, eye doctor, any of those appointments. We do have a CASA in place that does that transportation for the most part.
Great. Well, I will end this by just again saying thank you. And if you have any other questions or we can be of further support, please do not hesitate to reach out. All right. We'll talk to everybody soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.